Okay, so this is an RS5 F13. They're very limited production by the company RS5 Model Sport. They do 1/5 scale cars. They're very famous for one thing, which is the fact that they use carbon fiber as the actual monocoque of the car. And they actually make this car with real carbon fiber diffusers. These diffusers are actually functioning at 60 miles an hour. I've done some adjustments to it, like putting these canards and stuff. These are actually proven to work, and because they're flexible also, they work at lower speeds than the carbon diffuser. They don't need much to actually add a bit of downforce. Same thing with the wing, the rear wing as well. It actually does work over a certain speed. What I love about these fifth scale cars is the fact that they actually use disc brakes. They use hydraulic disc brakes in the front and the rear, so each wheel has its own individual disc brake on this car. I cut and painted a Williams body shell for it. They're pretty realistic. The air vents are open, obviously, to support the airflow. What else? The exhaust on this thing is titanium. I love the way the welds are done as well. Titanium, as well as the clutch bell. The clutch bell is titanium. Inside the clutch, I don't know if you can see it here, but the clutch is actually a mix of carbon fiber and aluminum. And I can switch between using more aluminum and more carbon fiber. The more aluminum you use, the higher the RPM which engages. The carbon fiber tends to grip better. The aluminum tends to give more slip, allowing the clutch to engage at a higher RPM. Sorry to sound nerdy, but that's kind of has to be said. Now all the servos on this car have been waterproofed, so this thing can drive in the rain. And as you can see, these are the slick tires. Now I tend to lock up the brakes sometimes because I'm still yet to adjust the front brakes. They tend to lock up quickly. And just as real Formula 1 cars have patches, so you can see that this actually has a patch here, well, and here, kind of. And it reminds me from the days of go-karting, where you actually could kind of leave like if you do this, right, you can't see it right now, but I can do this, and you can kind of leave your nail here, see? It's not focusing very well, but these are slicks and these are wets. So just as real F1 cars have rain tires and slick tires. Now for these cars, I'm not sure why they only made these as the wet tire. In a Formula 1 car, these kind of would look like the intermediate compound. And here they're the full wet compound, and they work incredibly. I'm yet to drive this one on the wet tires. I've driven other 1/5 scale, but this one being carbon fiber and really lightweight compared to the other ones such as FJ, which are all steel and aluminum. This one should be interesting to see how it drives. The engine is tuned as well. The cylinder has been ported. What else is there to mention? Oh yeah, the suspension. Suspension are actually proper push rod suspensions. These suspensions have been upgraded from a company called Genius, as well as the front. I've driven a real Formula Renault car in full scale, and the front in 2000 when I drove it, the model of the car was a 2008, and the front of the car did not have twin push rod suspension. It had one. So the fact that they based this off of that is pretty amazing, and it's pretty cool how they both work on one spring. It saves weight and space also under the front of the car. What else is there to talk about? What else? Yeah, this battery here is just a carbon wrap on it to kind of protect it. I'm not sure how that's gonna handle in the rain because it's placed pretty low. Fuel tank is right here. It's pretty obvious. This is a breather for the tank. This is kind of a custom support that I made to support the exhaust, because after a while the exhaust weight starts to, even though it's very light, but with the vibration of the car, it starts to push this diffuser down. So this actually keeps the diffuser hooked to a proper level without it dropping. And then after doing this, I actually did some research and I saw that this was used in 90s and 80s and, well, I don't know about current, but 80s and 90s F1 cars, where they did things like this to actually support diffusers and edges to not make them droop down over time. So that was pretty cool. It just shows you how much these things are built off of real cars. A lot of the stuff here is as complicated, if not more complicated, than some race cars. I wouldn't go as far as to say F1 cars, because those things are crazy, but definitely very high grade aluminum, aircraft aluminum, the best carbon fiber, thin. You're talking about 2mm, 3mm, 4mm, up to 6 and 7, depending on what the part is used for. What else do I say? Am I missing something? I think I'm missing something. I just don't know what it is. Another thing I can talk about is how the exhaust gases are used to kind of complement the airflow under the car with the diffuser. I don't know if they can be seen, but there they are. It's here. Yeah, I'm just interested to see how this thing is going to handle in the rain. Obviously, this is a single piston engine with a carburetor here. It's spark plug and it runs on 95 octane. This one has been tuned to run on higher octane. This one's been tuned to run on 100 octane level. I use for fuel for this, I just use the VP Racing 25:1 ratio. They come ready in cans, and I buy the octanes separate, and so I can mix. Sometimes I like to run them on 98 octane or 95. Sometimes I like to go up to 102, which is not very recommended when it's tuned up to 100 max, but sometimes I like to get the full performance. And God forbid, if anything goes wrong with this engine, if a piston goes, if a cylinder head goes, I can easily take it apart and just replace any components that need to be replaced, with the exception of the complication of porting, of course. But yeah, that's the RS5 Model Sport F1 car. It's pretty cool.